Folks, if you're wondering why it's taken me so long to get Mike Fay on the show, because it's completely on me. I had my schedule up to whack. But now things are calming down, Mike, and I get to get you on my show, and I'm so excited. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, I'm wondering how I got you off the range because, I look through the website, I look at all of the other accolades and the record. I mean, you are the number one guy in Michigan, and you sought after in the biggest way. So I'm thankful for your time.
No problem. Yeah, I'm really happy to be on with you, Mark. I love all the stuff that you do. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. Really good.
Before we get to it, and I love the concept of, making the practice count, especially now in a season, perhaps where in the Northeast and the Northern Hemisphere, I should say, wintertime is time to work on the game some.
Yes.
But before we do that, I want the folks to get to know you a little bit better. So tell us about you and how you came to where you are, please.
Absolutely. My career, I started as a PGA professional almost 30 years ago and was working at various clubs. Spent some time out in New Jersey, here in Michigan. We had a child, my daughter Rachel, about 15 years ago, and ended up moving to Northern Michigan. And I spent 12 years at Boyne Resorts as eventually working my way up through the company as director of instruction.
Okay.
And 3 years ago, I had an opportunity to move down near the Detroit area, about 4 hours south of there. And now I own my own golf academy at Walnut Creek Country Club in South Lyon, Michigan, just outside Detroit. And it's been fantastic, Mark. The members have been great to me. Our whole family, it's really working out well, this big move from being up north. But I still love going up north. It's beautiful country up in Northern Michigan for sure.
Well, that's the place where everyone's got to go to in the hot summers, right? To go and escape. It's good for golf too. And speaking of good for golf, the last few years I've gotten to call the Rocket Mortgage event in Detroit at Detroit Country Club, and Michigan, Detroit, that area is so great for golf, and you've got, if I'm understanding correctly, too, part of your academy is Mike Fay University. As this is golf immersion. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, MFG University. It was amazing. It took about 4 years for me to put it together. I did it all myself, from the video work to editing it to creating all the content and everything, and launch it out there as I feel I owe everyone that I coach something. And if I can keep you guys engaged in playing more and more golf, that's awesome. And it's an online school of golf.
That's perfect.
Let's say this.
It's so appropriate for the era in which we currently live. I mean, this podcast, everyone just searches internet golf instruction. And thankfully, our podcast shows up, yours does, because that's how we're doing right now. Digital lessons, all that sort of stuff. It's not the forefront of our industry.
Lots of stuff, right? And, creating the content was a blast to do, putting it all together. Because like you said, I'm very busy, and being able to put the time in to be able to do that. And then, people that I coach can go back and look at those lessons over and over and over again, which is awesome to be able to have it on there. And, I was one of the first to teach online lessons with the Golf Channel Swing Fix as Michigan's first Golf Channel Swing Fix instructor. And it was really, really cool to do that and help people around the world with their game.
Well, here we are. Before we pivot and get into making practice productive, quickly tell the folks how they can find MFG. How do they go? How do they go and join the university?
Yes. Yeah, they can go to MikeFayGolf.com and they can join MFG University online. And there's a bunch of different membership options there for you. And over the wintertime, Mark, I actually connect with people through a program I call Virtual Coach, where they're going to be able to send their swings in to me and I can help them. So I'm excited. I have a little bit more time in the wintertime to be able to do that at night. And I like doing it.
And the beauty about that, folks, we have a global tribe. I mean, we listen to folks around the world, listen to us, watch this on YouTube. Something you can do now. Even you folks down the Southern Hemisphere with summertime now, you can still tighten up your games. All right, Mike, let's get into it. Speaking of tightening up the games, I have a burden of late. I'm big about holistic improvement. I'm big about people understanding what they got to do. And now that my broadcast season is behind me, I'm on the range a little bit more. I'm giving some lessons a bit, and I'm working on my own game. But I turn around and I watch people just blindly bashing balls away. It is grinding my gears in the worst way. So that's why I said, let's make practice productive. So I want you just to, it's an overarching concept and you've given me some points. But before we dive into those, just give us your thoughts on practice, range time, all that sort of deal, and the importance thereof and how to do it properly.
Well, one of the first things that I ask people when I first meet them, when they come for some golf instruction, is how much time do you have to work on your golf game?
All right.
I'm very invested in them as a person to get better. And then we kind of help them. Every single person's different, right?
Yeah.
And how much time they have and what can we do to try to make this better? And like you said, I'm big, like you are, in the holistic approach to golf. What is going to lower their score faster?
Yeah.
And have more fun playing, right? And that dictates a lot of what I suggest each player to do for practice, because
true.
Don't go there and hit 170 balls in an hour and say it was good, because it's not.
Preaching.
No, it's not.
Well, look, yeah, you know what? Maybe this is a leading question. The folks who've listened to this for a long time are like, here he goes. He's on his, he's got the microphone and he's on his pedestal. When it comes to what is going to make, because we got golfers of all skill stations watching, listening to this, what's going to make the player's game better is not necessarily all the same thing. You can't shove them all into one hole. No. If you go do this. So I want to talk about this, and I want to sort of start close to the hole and then work out. Because typically I see people get there 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is. They're onto the range. They, if I'm lucky, swing the club once or twice, driver, and here we go. And that won't necessarily lower their scores. So let's start close to the hole, and I want you to lead us from there, please.
Right. If you go look at any practice facility, you're going to see the least amount of people on the putting green and short game area, and the most amount whacking drivers on the range, right?
Yep.
And short game is huge to lowering your score. If we can spend more time working on putting and chipping and pitching and all those things, Mark, the scores come down a lot faster for most players that I coach. Creating practice routines like the pod programs that I've made, where it's supervised practice in very small groups and mixed with private lessons, have been very, very successful at helping people play better, because they commit.
Yeah.
And committing is the biggest thing to getting better at golf, I think. If you commit to saying, I'm going to go practice at this time, during this time, we get better. Right?
Yes. Along those lines, I'm a preacher, I'm a Bob Jones fan. I sort of modeled everything I do on him with some input from Gary Player. And Jones said the key to golf was turning 3 strokes into 2. And so I took that to heart. And you don't necessarily, yes, I guess you can hit the ball more accurately off the tee and avoid big numbers. But I've from that taken, well, if you're good at shot number 3, you're going to make lots of 3s and 4s. If you're good at shot number 1, that doesn't necessarily parlay. But what I also found, and I want your comment on this, please, let's talk about pitching for argument's sakes. If you're working on pitching shots greenside, not even the fancy stuff, the high floating stuff, just basic pitch shots, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone there, because you're working on the shot and all the things that encompass that. And to a certain extent, you're working on technique that flows into the full swing some too. Are you with me where I'm going here?
Absolutely. No, a lot of times if I'm having problems with a player working on their full swing, we will pack it up and head over to the short game area and fix it, because it's the same. And when I'm on TrackMan with a player, whether I'm measuring pitch shots or full swing, I see the same tendencies with what they do. And so if we can make a smaller swing and we can start fixing it, it makes the bigger swing a lot easier for players. That's what I find.
Yeah. Okay. This is great. Now you've listed here, and I'm looking down at my phone for the folks watching me on YouTube. You've got some putting drills here, and I'm not name dropping, but way when I was a youngster, I got a lesson briefly from Bobby Locke, who's one of the great putters of all time. And he told me about the rolling of the ball. And then Mark McNulty was a tremendous tournament putter. He said to me as a young man, back in the days when we had a shag bag, right, and you didn't have balls on the range, he took his shag bag on the green, found the longest putt he could, and just grew a love for hitting long putts well. And man, he makes a 30-footer or two around still to this day. And you talk about some speed drills here. Talk to one or two speed drills to improve lag putting, because the average golfer listening to this, even the advanced golfer, on average, you can have 30 feet or beyond for your birdie putt if you hit a green. But no one ever really works on that department of the game.
They don't. And that's the biggest thing too, lowering the amount of putts you have.
Yeah.
I think we get too fascinated, Mark, with the hole.
Okay. Yeah.
And we don't think so much about how it gets there. And
Okay.
one of the drills is that I like to call the ladder drill, where you hit one ball halfway and then you hit another ball past that ball, but not to the hole. And you're trying to pick spots to roll your ball to, not necessarily trying to make a 30-footer. Because as we know, and I think it's great where, with Scott Fawcett's work and Lou Steigner and all these things that have realistic expectations to get people to understand that it's not about trying to make it, it's about trying to get it up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Get it in a spot you can make the next one, right? And it's all speed. If we can get better at speed.
Well, how about this has just come to me as you were talking, but you sort of get my mind going a little bit. And if you listen to the professional golfer give interviews, and I have to do this a bunch, and you'll hear them when they talk about the game, they'll say, I had control of my golf ball, talking about the ball striking or whatever. And their game at that level is more about distance control as opposed to left and right control. That's at the level. At the beginner level, folks are very concerned with left to right. But the truth is, golf is a game of distance and direction. And if you can get the distance right with the basic shots, you're getting yourself on the front foot, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you need both, right?
Yeah.
And when you never spend time trying to roll the ball to a certain spot, like you were saying earlier, makes golf really hard when you're putting. We're going to 3-putt a lot. I mean, going back and forth, it's not a lot of fun. And working on these speed drills. And then also I like to work with players on drills that penalize them for 3-putting.
Okay, right. So you put some pressure.
What's that?
So you put some pressure to the exercise then.
We have to. That's the game of golf, right?
Yeah.
So we have to put some pressure to, if we 3-putt, we go back to 0, playing point games, things like that. Like there's some consequences to stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah, I would say so. And you talk about the pressure. For me, the competition is a big deal too. So maybe, I guess, if you can loop a friend and then you get some competition on the go, and maybe $1 or $2 to sort of ramp things up, and then you're starting to prepare not just for the feel of it, and then you're preparing for, okay, this is what I might feel like when it's all on the line on the 18th hole here in a few days' time on Saturday morning or something.
Absolutely. Whether it's the same pressure, right? So if you can practice that pressure and practice winning that $1, it makes it a lot easier for players on the golf course then.
Yeah, sometimes it makes the hole look a little wider too. Moving off the green, look, obviously you practice the long putts. If you get good at that stuff, you can have more short putts, so you can work on that. But I want to step off the green, and you talked about the short game, and then you listed like 4 clubs: lob wedge, gap wedge, sand wedge, wedge. You talked about going to different targets from different distances, but with all of these clubs, it's not like I get there with my favorite and I go ahead.
Right. You got to be able to hit all different ones, different shots, different heights, different distances, understand spin and distance control.
Yeah.
Things like that.
When folks are doing that, because I'm about them getting it, right? So when they're doing these shots, let's say, okay, they're like, I'm listening to Mike now. I heard him. I'm going to go and do this. And I'm going to the practice facility and I've got my 4 wedges. I hit the first one and then I duff it and then I try and hit the next one and the ball positions all over the show. Talk to them about setting up to the thing properly and sort of creating a positive environment. So whether they hit the balls well or badly, they're still learning.
Yeah, the ultimate goal is to be able to get the ball as close to the hole as you possibly can, right?
Yeah.
And when you're learning that, what the lob wedge does versus a sand wedge does versus a gap wedge does, you can take that to the golf course, right?
Yeah.
And, I think that contact is probably the biggest thing when we're working on short game for most players.
Yeah.
And creating that really good contact so we can spin the golf ball, and spin gives us control, Mark. So, and then understanding that spin, right? What lie gives us more spin versus less spin, things like that. And then you can take that and practice it. But hitting the ball solid is number one.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk more about that when you talk about range practice. But I want to mine this a little bit because, practicing those shots around the greens with different clubs, you're likely to find out that off a hard pan lie, the wedge is going to probably serve you better than one of the lofted wedges with more bounce. So this is all experimentational, as you're recommending, right?
Right. Absolutely. You got to try different things and see what works for you. But yeah, every single lie is different, right? And, we don't, I had a teacher a long time ago that was giving me a lesson, and I would rake a ball over and I'm chipping, and rake a ball over and chipping and stuff. And he walked by and he said, "Hey, do you want a tee?" And it took me, I was young, I didn't know what that meant. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I learned as I got
little snarky old general. That's the wisdom of age to say, "Oh, youngster, you still go." Well, back to Bobby Jones. That's what he said. He's like, never move the ball. You got to learn to play it as it lies. And if you do that, then you're going to improve. Tee through green.
It's a big deal.
Now let's move from the grass into the sand. It irks me because most club golfers, if they really were keeping statistics, would find out that when they play 18 holes, they're in a bunker, good, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 times or more. And a lot of them don't get the ball onto green even. Maybe the advanced golfers will, but they, unlike the professionals that almost aim for bunkers at times because they work on this thing, your typical golfer doesn't. So talk to us about some sand play in the preparation, please.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing with sand play is where your low point of your off club is.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And if we can get the low point to be more consistent, and often at times I might start bunker lessons with drawing a line in the sand and just trying to hit the line. And I think
I'm going to interrupt you there. First bunker lesson, I got 2 from Mr. Player. Both of them were with a lot of authority, as you can imagine, because Gary is that way. First one, he drew a line in the sand. He goes, "Hit the line." And I hit the line, but it landed early. And he goes, "No, start on the line." And I missed the line. He goes, "Hit the line." He just kept on pointing at the line. And he never told me what to do. It was like, just organize yourself to get the thing landing over there. And the line was in the middle of my stance. And then when I got that down and I was somewhat consistent at it, then he goes, "Strike the match." So now add speed to the thing. And that was basically that. I had that down, moved the ball forward to that thing, and all of a sudden I became a halfway proficient bunker player. I mean, it was as simple as that.
Yes, if we have a hard time on TrackMan and our full swing with low point control, we don't hit our bunker shots very good. That's what I usually see with players. It's the same. So
is it purely rehearsal for you too? I mean, drills are great and stuff, but rehearsal of where you hit the sand, how deep you go in the sand, and then just kind of self-experimentation and discovery.
Absolutely. As soon as they don't get to see, when I tell them on TrackMan and they're hitting off a mat or off grass and their low point's 1 inch before the ball or 2 inches before the ball, they can see it in a bunker, right?
Yeah.
So when you put a line down and you see where you start to enter the sand, then it's like, oh boy, we have to start getting some different foot pressure going and get that weight more forward and get our body moving different so that we can start getting that low point to even hit the line. So
yeah. Well, look, I mean, this is almost the perfect segue. I think of a young Seve Ballesteros who learned to hit a 3-iron off the sand on the beach where he grew up. And then Vijay Singh, who to this day, if you go to any PGA Tour range and he's there, he'll be hitting balls out of the sand. In fact, at Augusta National, he goes to the bunkers on the short game practice area and hits the balls out of that over the trees into the landing area of the range. And one of your things about range time was just ironing out contact, making sure you land in the right place and hit the center of the club face.
Right, for sure. Using foot spray on your club face, whether it's whatever club it is, your driver or your irons or even your putter, can really help you guys play better. There's no doubt. If you don't hit it in the middle of the face, it's not good at all.
And if you don't hit in the middle of the face, then the ball doesn't go as far. The next thing you're swinging harder and it's all out of whack. And then we're like, well, I hit my 8-iron 150, but it's not doing that. So anyways, it opens up a can of worms that we don't want to deal with. Along the iron play and the contact thing, I want you to help folks because this is a fairly informed audience. They're seeking knowledge, right? And so they are likely lesson takers who listen to this podcast or watch it. So they've got something they're working on. Let's say they've gone to go see Mike. And Mike says, yo, you got to iron out your trail arm movement or something. Help us put that with still striking the ball well together. Because all of a sudden, I think one way or the other, we can lose the forest for the trees. Do you get where I'm going here?
Sure, absolutely. No, those things that I ask players to do when we're changing their swing is to get to that point, right? And get to that point of hitting it on the center of the club face. Yeah. For example, if we tend to swing our club path way to the left and pull our hands in or bend our elbows a lot for a right-handed player, a lot of times we'll hit it off of the toe or off of the heel. And I show that to them in video.
Okay.
And then changing their club path will help that a lot.
Gotcha.
Here and there. Changing foot pressure definitely helps the club path here and there.
So when you're figuring the stuff out and the path gets more accurate, you are saying to the folks that, hey, do that stuff, get those numbers and get that element neatened up. The angle of attack will probably tighten up too. And then you will start to see the club landing in a more consistent area.
Absolutely. It's I re-engineer it so that they can fix it. And then they fix it themselves, right? And but a big thing like having TrackMan and things, measuring devices and things like that, it's really good for people because then they can have something to measure against. How am I doing and why am I doing this? I'm a big proponent in why you're doing what you're doing and how to fix it yourself. So it's great.
Yeah. Well, I guess along those lines, again, you've got my mind spinning here. I hear this, or I've heard this when I was a full-time golf instructor a lot. You probably get it a lot too. You say to the student, all right, hello, how are you? Tell us about you, get to know. All right, what are your goals? I just want to be more consistent. And they're thinking of how the ball travels. What you're saying is, how about you just get the base of the swing more consistent? And if you start to do that, you're going to see what you want to see. Huh?
Yeah, you are going to see what you want to see. For sure. But you have to figure out how to get there.
Yeah. All right. Let's say we got that stuff worked out. You do have a point here that I do want to touch. And you talk about odds and evens, the irons, not just practicing with your one club and at random targets. Talk a little bit about that because it warms my heart when I go to a range and I see someone going, hit a shot at this, and then they turn, they go over there. And so they asking themselves to do stuff that the golf course wants them to do over every shot. Right.
Yeah, you don't get it like that on the course, right? Same thing with having the tee and the balls when you're chipping, right?
So varying clubs and going to different targets. What are the odds and evens? What do you mean by that?
Odds and even number of irons. So one day they might practice even numbered irons. Another day they might practice odd number irons. And I don't allow people really to hit more than 2 or 3 shots when they're going out to practice with one club, and then they switch clubs. And they go up and down their back.
Okay, I like that. I got to ask you this then. Then you get the individual who's like, well, my golf swing's good if I can hit my 3-iron. Like, okay, you're laughing. So how about you just go there and speak about the ratio of shots? Because standing there wearing out 3, 4, 5-irons and stuff, I don't care who you are, that's that you're likely to fail at the end of it all.
We don't have a personal relationship with our clubs. They don't talk back to you.
I love you.
You know? And so we have to talk about why we don't hit this club well, because it's a different club than the other clubs.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so it might be a little longer and have less loft. And so I like to talk about that with people, so that's like, it's very, very, you know, concerning for people that they can't hit certain golf clubs. And I help them with that so that they stop saying that.
Yeah.
Because it's not true. It's because of your swing. And it's the Indian, not the arrow, right? Like, we have to be able to understand that, and then that will help them with their game immensely, because their golf swing is doing it. But then when we put a golf club in their hand that has less loft, or a golf club in their hand that has more loft, what does that do to what the golf ball does?
Exactly. Well, I guess along those lines too, I'm sort of trying to prod you in the direction of saying, and this is with a view to getting it to the course. Now, how many times are you actually going to hit a 3-iron versus how many times you do it? So I want you to comment there too, to almost make this practice to improve, but also to make sure that you're practicing for the examination you're going to face when you play against your buds in a few days' time.
You have to, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to practice what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go out there and just hit. If you're going to hit this club once around, how much time are you going to devote to it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Or if you're going to hit it no times around. But then you're concerned because I can't hit that club. I don't like that club.
Oh, I'm loving you.
I hear that a lot, right? Like, oh, I can't hit that one.
Yeah.
But
we'll take it out the bag.
How many times you hit it?
Yeah. I mean, I saw this here recently. I can't recall who it was, but the stories are rampant from a Ben Hogan back in the day where you played a certain course. He goes, I never used my 6-iron. So he just took it out the bag, right?
Sure.
And I'm seeing that more and more now, where you see club golfers, even decent golfers, 8, 9, 10 handicappers with this bag full of clubs. And they're ones that are essentially not even damaged because they haven't been used yet they're still sitting in the bag there for some reason. And they feel then, you almost feel pressured to use the club, which is likely not going to work.
And I pull this thing out and see where it goes.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, it's not. If you don't use it and you don't use it, then you should get other clubs that you will use, like wedges.
Yes,
I often see that we don't have, a lot of times we have too many clubs up high in the set and not enough clubs down low in the set. And so I suggest, that through wedge gapping and measuring how far you hit your clubs, and it just helps people.
And you remind me too, just to put a bow on this conversation, Grant Way to this day for me is one of the great ball strikers of all time and a wonderful golf teacher. He's recommended to many a golfer, even advanced golfers, to say, hey, to your odds and evens, take all the evens out of the bag and go and play 9 holes. Take all the odds out of the bag and go play 9 holes. So you learn to get into, right, instead of golf swing, it's the shot making sort of mentality when you're out there.
Absolutely. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. Okay. To just close the range time, because you got some tips for inside too, which I like. You talked about time budgeting.
Right.
Let's say you've got an hour, whoever's listening to this. What would you say to them? Okay, we're going to hit the whole bag. We're going to be holistic. In that hour, what would you recommend to them if they were just breaking down time and sort of devoting some time to each area of the bag?
It depends upon the player and their level of handicap, but I would spend a lot more time in general with most players on their shorter clubs.
All right. Absolutely.
Okay. You're not in, like we were talking about earlier, how many times are you going to hit this thing?
Yeah.
Going around once, twice. You also have to look at too, like if you're going to practice and which golf courses you play, you know that on this par 3, you're going to hit a 6-iron and you're going to hit a 7-iron on that one. And you're going to hit, so you have to kind of think about that. Think about what different clubs you're going to be hitting on the course, right?
Yeah.
And it's really important.
Cool. Okay, let's move it inside. I'm going to list them to you and let you comment. You call this inside drills. Mm-hmm. And to me, it sort of keeps one engaged mentally. Because when you're thinking about the stuff, your mind's on it. So that means signals are going out to your muscles. So you say, practice your grip by watching your favorite TV show or ball game, but a golf club in the hand. Then you talk about slow motion drills with a mirror. Hey, Nick Faldo said to me, if he had to do it all over again, he'd spend more time in front of a mirror. Swing faults, slide with a chair, couch stretching, mobility, mindfulness. There it all is. So talk about that inside time, and how we can make that count to making our practice more valuable too.
Yeah, really, really important. I mean, if I am having a player and I'm working on their grip and it's terribly uncomfortable, right? I mean, to switch your grip.
Yeah.
And I find that players, sometimes it's tough. And I go, listen, it's going to take 30 days of you watching your favorite game or TV show, as long as mom lets you have a club in the house, of you holding on to it like this. And I've had really good success with people. Within a month, they feel, wow, that felt more comfortable now. It feels better now, things like that.
I want to talk about the mirror too, because it's uncanny to me how a mirror is so enlightening. It's kind of like the swing video. When you watch the video, like, oh no, that's not me. It is you.
Right.
But when I put a person in front of the mirror, I want to know if you see this. I say to them, okay, now your chest on. Now watch yourself as you swing. And everyone's like glued to the ground with their head in their eyes. They just so head down, but they never really, okay, I can lift my head and I can move back and forth in slow motion and see and feel. So you're touching those two senses.
Absolutely. Using video when I coach, and this is how I do it. I use video when I coach, and I go, okay, I want this to be over here and this to be over there, and use a mirror and practice that.
Yeah.
I often have them use blue painter's tape on a mirror.
Oh, so you're creating like boundaries and almost coloring inside the lines then.
Right.
All right.
So like, put a center line one maybe, and, is my head moving a foot to the right on my backswing? Whatever it is, you can immediately see that in the mirror, right?
That's awesome, yeah.
And, we do a lot of mirror work, especially in the wintertime.
And the cool thing too, I mean, I remember as a kid, I was a decent golfer when I was younger, and my brother turned out pretty good. We had these big windows in the front of the house. We didn't have a mirror, but in the window at a certain time of the day, you could see your reflection. And to this day, I can see the two of us in front of that mirror, just backing and forthing. We'd seen a picture of a Nick Faldo or someone, and then you're trying to get in the same place. And it's amazing how when you're doing that and you're cognizant of it, how it's like that isometric practice, and it really gets the body prepared.
It's great.
Yeah. I want to touch one more too. I just got to open this text here real fast. With the inside practice, you talk about stretching and mobility, and then mindfulness, playing the course in your mind before you play. Now, stretching, mobility, very important, but this mindfulness is such a thing, to be sort of self-aware and to kind of chart what you're about to go and do.
You have to. You got to prepare, right?
Yeah.
You have
what
to.
Is this like you sitting in your easy chair and just, going through the round?
You're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, on number one, I'm going to hit driver. I'm going to hit it right over here. And then I'm going to hit a 7-iron on the green and then over here. And the pin's probably going to be over there today. And then I get on next hole and it's a par 3. And I usually hit a 5-iron. And I'm going to hit it right in the middle of the green.
Okay.
It's mindfulness and thinking about what's going on, right?
So as it pertains to this mindfulness, it's not like I go out there and I sit in my chair and I'm like, okay, I smash it down the fairway, I stiff my 7-iron, I make the birdie putt, then I hit a hole in one on the next one, and I'm doing this kind of crazy golf. It's actually, preparing for some adversity, some varying conditions and stuff too then, right?
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to, right? what's going to happen? What happens if the greens are super slow today?
Got you. So when you're being mindful, you are taking into account almost all the adversity you're likely to face too, because that's essentially almost a guarantee in the game.
Yes. Nothing's perfect, right? So, we have to think about these things, we're how close to the hole do you land the ball and things like that, right? I mean, the greens are slow, it's raining, you have to land it closer to the hole.
Yeah.
You're going to let a shot bounce up onto the green because it's downwind and the greens are hard and fast.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Hey, you just used a term that I want to wrap this conversation with, and you've been so helpful and it's so insightful. And you just used you used a term where you said nothing's perfect, right? And now there are going to be those practice sessions that just don't go that well. And I want you to advise the listener, the viewer of this, to say, okay, you had a bad day. This is how you're going to deal with it after, and prepare yourself for the next time.
Yes, you have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it doesn't go good.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's golf.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right? And we have to deal with those tough days like that. But the next time, there's another opportunity to make it happen. And we can.
Is it as simple as, or what would you advise the golfer to say, okay, you've had this bad day, just go home and you kind of let it go, don't stress it? Or do you have a technique perhaps that you can share? Because I guarantee you, everyone watching this or listening to this has been like, yeah, that's me. Last time I was out there, I want to give up the game. And help us a little bit here.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's no doubt, because if you don't let it go, then it's going to eat you up inside.
Yeah.
And it's just a game.
It is.
You gotta remember, it's just a game. And what I would suggest, the next time you go back out there, you start to check all of your fundamentals and things like that. It could be, this game is so hard that it could be you aiming incorrectly and just messing everything up.
Yeah. That's
it's hard.
It's crazy. It's crazy how, I have the luxury of being on the PGA Tour and watching these guys from close. It's amazing how even in a pre-round warm-up, you speak of something like alignment. They leave no stone unturned. Even at that elite level, they've got the alignment rod down there, the ball position checker. I mean, I was out there with Adam Scott a few weeks ago with that golf swing that fell out of heaven, had a line where the ball was, and every single time was checking his ball position before he swung the club.
You have to.
Yeah.
But it's discipline. Most golfers don't, right? How many people do you see on the range at any given time that even have an alignment stick down?
Not many. It's terrible.
Not many,
folks, you need to watch this, because you should see the mean face that Mike Fay is giving you right now, saying you've got to get this stuff down. You know what?
It's just helpful for you. That's all.
You've been so helpful, Mike. The Mike Fay University, Golf University, they know how to get there. How else can they follow you? Please share the website, the social media, that sort of stuff.
Sure. Yes, the website is MikeFayGolf.com.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can follow me on Twitter at Mike Fay Golf, and on Instagram, Mike Fay Golf. We have Facebook as well.
And now you can go and take lessons with him during the fall. Folks, Mike, and I'm keeping you off the range, keeping you away from the stuff you love. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your insight. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me on, Mark.